I was just finishing up a little bit of work on my van today. Coming up here, just kind of getting back in the news swing, and I read an article that just reinforces what I said earlier in my first video today. This is purely coincidental. This was posted 5 hours ago. What Red Sea battles have taught the U.S. Navy about a future fight with China. Be sure to like and subscribe. We're going to kind of go through this because it just buttresses everything I said earlier in my first video today, where I pointed out the woes of the U.S. Navy. This article goes through, and first, it discusses the engagements with the Houthis in the Red Sea and the absolute bravery and professionalism of the United States Navy. It's personnel, officers, and sailors. And I'd expect nothing less. It's the U.S. Navy. They're the best. This article goes through a number of those engagements. But what it goes through more importantly is what I spoke about earlier in that video. About the procurement process, about our industrial base, our inability to replenish our stockpiles, the inability to make weapon systems and weapons themselves in a fast and proficient manner. We have let all of those industries atrophy. And this article points a lot of that out. And I'm going to get to the kind of the nut of it. It's a very long piece, and I'm going to hit other points, but I want to hit these first and foremost, right off the bat. But the expenditure rates of guided missiles will be far worse in a China fight, Van Tal said. Exacerbating the reality is the fact that PLA weapons are more sophisticated than the Iranian-derived munitions the Houthis rely on, which will likely increase the number of American SAMs expended per engagement with the Chinese. China has far more anti-ship missiles than the Houthis, in a variety of iterations. It has developed short and medium-range, intermediate-range anti-ship ballistic missiles to help exert authority over its broad territorial claims and deny opponents access to vast areas during conflicts. If Beijing attempts to invade Taiwan, it will rely on a variety of munitions to keep U.S. surface combatants' aircraft carriers far from the East China and South China Sea. It will be part of the PLA's overreaching anti-access area denial strategy that is currently heavily dictating what a war would look like in the Pacific. This map is a map of the ranges of their various anti-ship systems. As you can see in the video I did earlier, the DF-17 has a 1,000 kilometer, a 1,500 kilometer range. The DF-26 is the yellow line at 4,000 kilometers. The H-6 and the DF-26 can strike ships stationed in Guam or in the Marianas or in the Palaus. The DF-17 could engage any warship in Japanese waters or in the northern part of Filipino waters. And they obviously have the JH-7 intermediate there to cover that range in between. PLA raid density will be far higher than the relative dribbles of Houthi attacks, so Navy ships will quickly run out of SAMs, Van Told said, adding that some U.S. vertical launching systems missile cells are loaded with non-SAM weapon systems, and the U.S. warships will have to retire to rearming locations for the fight. And it goes through a procedure of rearming at sea that was tested this last fall for rearming a vertical launch system underway at sea. Another important aspect of this article, it would be important to identify those and make Defense Industrial Base investments to ease those choke points, he said. This was analogous to the difficult production problems the U.S. initially faced in 1939 and 1941 during the pre-Pearl Harbor industrialization mobilization, which really was spurred by huge French and British demands for arms starting in the late 1930s. It wasn't for the head start working out our problems while supplying those allies, the vast production of 1943 and 1944 would never have been possible. As I said in my video earlier, I believe it's time for the United States to consider a war production board. Again, history is full of examples of weapon systems that appeared to be too good to be true, but would fail in the heat of battle. Now, hopefully the DF-17 and the DF-26 are those weapons, not like this example here that I'm going to show you, the Mark 14 torpedo. Famous for its ineffectiveness in World War II in 1943, 1942, and 1943. Countless reports of submarines hitting other Japanese ships and the torpedoes just bouncing off. We need to work out these problems now, right now. As I said in that video earlier today, and I am going to link it, we expended 400 munitions, 80 SM-6 at a cost of $4 million apiece. The entire 15-month engagement period was $500 million. The use of 80 SM-6 missiles, which are described here, I want to actually get the actual description here. The SM-6, I'm sorry I don't have it right in front of me, can attack air targets, land targets, and ultra-high range targets, as where the SM-3, which is basically the THAAD, attacks targets in space. SM-6 goes near space. And we can only produce, at this time, 150 of them a year. So during that 15 months, we expended approximately 1.5 years production of SM-6s. That was one adversary using backwards munitions. Not backwards, very primitive in comparison to what we would face in a Chinese fight. We would be facing state-of-the-art weapons. State-of-the-art. Weapons we don't currently even possess. And weapons that we would have a great difficulty defending against. I reiterate, the defense spending needs to be changed. Right now, we do not need weapon systems as much as we need weapon manufacturing. We don't as much need ships. We need ship building. We don't need aircraft. We need aircraft manufacturing. We don't need tanks. We need material manufacturing. As I said in the video earlier today, this would bring back good American jobs. High quality American jobs. High paying American jobs. Hopefully on systems we never have to use. But if we do, we better have the ability to make them. And I'm glad that this article came out and buttresses exactly what I have been saying. If you're listening to the Lemon Sour Show, if you're listening to Pat, you are actually ahead of the curve. I learned it from that guy. I learned it from him. Don't think of the now when you're looking at stuff like this. Think of the future. Because this isn't something that can be solved with a snap of a finger, magic wand. This will take years and years and years of thoughtful investment into the manufacturing, production, design, and fielding of this equipment. And we are woefully lacking. I encourage you to see the video I made earlier today I'll make sure that it's linked in the description here. I really appreciate you coming by and listening. You have yourselves a great evening.